The Retrieval Practice Grid active learning experience rests heavily on the teacher's ability to convey to their students that, as educator Kate Jones writes, using your memory shapes your memory. That this tool is not an assessment, but a powerful learning experience that is low stakes or no stakes in the classroom practice. The goal of retrieval practice is to allow for accurate and efficient retrieval of information from memory. The more often we retrieve information from our brains, the stronger the neural pathways become and the faster we are able to retrieve it in the future. Consider a map of a major city. There are surface streets and there are freeways. The more freeways there are, the faster it is to travel from point A to point B. The neural pathways work in a similar way. The first few times we retrieve information from our memory, it's like taking the surface streets. It takes time and effort for the information to navigate its way through the brain. However, the more often we retrieve the information, the neural pathways strengthen and the information travels much quicker, much like taking the freeway. The grid strategy is one way to use retrieval practice in the classroom. The grid strategy begins with a teacher or PLC creating a grid, using a chart or table, with as many boxes as deemed appropriate based on the amount of lessons the grid will be used for. The boxes in the grid should be large enough to ensure that all students have enough room to write in them. Each box of the grid will contain a specific element of a topic already studied. No new material. The box could refer to a concept, event, individual, key term, date, etc., but must be the essential content and material for the previous learned unit of study. There are many different ways to use this strategy, but in this video we will focus on one of the two methods, the standard grid. The first method, the standard grid, is a brain dump of previous learned skills and ideas, followed by intentional connections to new ones. The teacher will create a grid using a previous unit's mastery concepts. For instance, if in a previous unit we studied the Revolutionary War, the grid might look like this. Next, teachers would hand out the grid to each individual student and have them brain dump everything they can remember about every concept for about 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes is up, the students would work with partners or as a group to share what they remembered and add new ideas to their grid using a new color, marker, or pen. Finally, students would be allowed to look into their notes and books to fill in anything else they missed with a third color. This third color provides the student and teacher with important information. These are the concepts they struggle to recall the most. The teacher can now move on to the new unit's instruction. Each day, the students make one connection from the new knowledge in the current unit to the previous knowledge on the grid by writing a connection in pencil. You can support students with these connections using the following thinking frame. Ideally, you would have the students complete the same grid from scratch a few additional times during this new unit, so their first color makes up more of the grid than any of the other colors, visually demonstrating the knowledge that is effectively stored in their long-term memory. This method makes retrieval practice part of the classroom routine. Also, over time, students build up a collated set of retrieval notes that cover several units, and by doing so provide them with solid study materials. Ultimately, the goal of the Retrieval Practice Grid is to motivate students to identify and fill in their own gaps of knowledge. It is a highly adaptable resource that can be used as bell work, introduction to a unit, or as revision resources, fitting easily into any classroom learning routine. The most important thing to remember with retrieval practice, however, is that it must be routine. Students need to practice retrieving information multiple times before they move from the surface streets and finally get to travel faster through the freeway. The beauty of both grids, when used repeatedly throughout the year, challenges every individual in the classroom, no matter their ability, to build stronger dendrites in their brain and to ensure